Welcome back to Jeremiah. This is my final segment for the day. I'm going to take the rest of the day off and cruise around. It's one of those rare, beautiful days in Indiana. I'm not going to get too into my own world here with you, but just to share a quick thing with you. I'm in Indiana. This is Jeremiah. This is New Covenant. We're talking about beauty, and we're going over a lot of scriptures, and we're really getting into some deep stuff. I'm really enjoying this. And this is like home Bible study right now. It's kind of loosey-goosey, but it's okay. I guess the word in the dictionary would be aleatory or serendipitous or something like that. So it's just kind of loosey-goosey, but it's fun loosey-goosey here. It's very serious loosey-goosey. It's not, we're talking about some extremely significant ideas. And I know that a lot of you are enjoying. I had one of my students, fellow students, but it's a student that tell me that, because we're all students, there's only one master. And or one rabbi, and they were basically telling me that they are looking forward to the lesson on faith and so forth. And you know what? It's good to hear a little feedback. I don't get much feedback because teachers don't do that in general. That's more for pastors and stuff like that. But a Bible teacher studies hard, comes to church, and he teaches and goes, kind of. That's kind of my gift right now. Of Father's power, of His energy, of His river. And I'm connected to that river, and as you know, I abide in Jesus Christ first. He is the vine, I'm the branches, He's the vine. And we're abiding closely with Him, and the Father is the overseer. And He is the immediate supervisor, and He's the head of the body. And He's the one who's immediately supervising my teachings, and I'm telling you right now that we are just rejoicing in so much truth here. You talk about the poor saying they're rich. I'm rich because I have intellectualism. The word blessed comes from intellectual. I mentioned that to you before. This is Jeremiah with New Covenant. This is my final segment of beauty. We're getting up to, this is probably J or K or something, but I will enumerate them later for you, and so that you can just go from one to the next and enjoy getting into beauty. Now, we've been talking about a lot of other subjects, kind of getting off track just a little bit, but that's okay. It's okay to have an interlude. Interludes are fine. I'll get you back on track and so forth. But we're just rejoicing in all these scriptures and the power of God. To them He gave power, and that power, dunamis, it comes in different forms. It's administrative. It is planned out. I'm not going to go through the Greek words, but power comes from God. It comes from the throne. It comes from administrative ideas that God organizes. Then He gives it to you in the form of electricity or the ghost, which is energia. Then that ghost comes to you. You have to be open to it. It has a purpose. It has functions. And it comes in and out of you, kind of, and like a river going through a pipe, or something, and you hold it for a while, and you explode with it. And there's quite a few Greek words for power, and I'm not going to go through that. I have a lesson that talks about how the power works, administrative and all that kind of stuff, and how you can store the power, and you store the power of the Lord, and it flows through you, and you manage that office that you have, and I'm forgetting some of the ideas with power right now, but let's let that go. I got to get my notes out for power and how it works and so forth, as far as the dunamis and the dunamuo and all that kind of stuff. There are different terms that refer to how the power works. Sometimes the power is for bad and whatever, okay? Let's go, which I've mentioned before, and I don't want to get into that, but I mentioned how people actually use God's church and powers and abilities, and God lets them use it, and the people that are using it are not actually part of the team. They're using the electricity, but they're not part of the team. And I'm not going to go into that. That's another word for power, too. Let's go back to Jermaine, Paradise and Beautiful. Now, we have not gone very far. And I wanted to give a review. Let's move on to Revelation 19:8. So Revelation 19:8 is the same as Psalm 17:15. which is looking good. I mean, you're looking good in heaven. I mean, you're covered with God's purity, and you can't beat that. And the Lord gave it to you freely. You know, freely He gave it to you based upon your submission to the Son and you focusing on serving and loving the Son, and you're in like flint. That's what you say in America. Or they used to say a little bit. And I don't want to bring it back in fashion, but I used to kind of like to say, in like flint and so forth. But that may have some negative connotations, but that's okay. So we're looking good in Revelation 19:8. The word is bright there used. It's the same word I think that's used when the master, don't quote me, I have to go back and check that. It's the same word probably that the master, the Bible uses when Jesus is glorified on the Mount of Transfiguration. Because what the master is showing the three leaders, James, Peter, and John, he's showing them that he is Almighty God. But he's also a man, son of man, subject to Almighty God. And that's the mystery of God. And how could God do that? But there it is. And we can see that in the stars that I show you here in biblical astronomy, can't you? The Sagittar on the bottom there on the left. You're looking at what? A two-natured being. And the top of the being is the God part, and the bottom might be considered the man part. And of course, Sagittar means wise. Sagi means that God is wise and accurate. When Jesus came here, the plan of salvation was a 4,000-year plan. It was accurate, and it was intellectual. Big time. God uses his head, and he used it right there with the Sagittar, with the arrow pointed right where it needed to go. Everything is to perfection. So you're looking good in Revelation 19. Okay, Jeremiah. By the way, I'm going over this again because I like thinking about this. And those of you, well, I was going to go into something else. Let's let that go. So you're looking good at Revelation 19:8. You're looking good. You're looking good, man. I mean, you're looking good forever. That's your permanent uniform. You won't take that uniform off. You don't have a closet in heaven. That's your permanent garb right there. That's your gear. And let me tell you something. Jeremiah parks on this stuff a lot, and I'm parking on it even more now. Because it's something that we need to spend a lot of time on. It doesn't mean we're not going to talk about, Rehoboam and Jeroboam and, Solomon's Proverbs of the wise man and, talking about the mercy of the Lord is where we're going big time. I told you that beauty is just like mercy and so forth. We're going to get into David and a lot of talk about mercy because that's another big part of Christianity, is for us to take time to talk about the beauty of God's mercy and David giving us poetry in that area. It's just wonderful. And by the way, that's one of the last things in this ministry. I'm focusing on beauty now, but I will get into mercy coming up shortly. I was going to infuse it into beauty, and I might do that, but we will do that. But I wanted to really focus on David talking about mercy, because nobody talks about God's compassion towards us as good as David does. Nobody. And that should be one of the main focuses we have as we get through the basics of repentance and baptism and the basics, of 100% imputation, just as if you never sinned. And I just went over some scriptures pertaining to once saved is not always saved. It used to be popular here in America. And how the Bible teaches it's a marathon. That once saved, always saved is nonsense. And how this is a marathon, and Paul calls it a marathon, and that's exactly what it is. But in other words, there's a lot of things in Bible study. And as you can see, Jeremiah spent a lot of time on science. You can see some of my science scriptures up there now. We have a lot of things to go over here in this ministry, in this servanthood. Okay? Now, Revelation 19:8. This is Jeremiah with New Covenant, and we're going to get going here. Looking good. Okay, okay, you're looking good, man. I mean, what more do you want? I was talking with Brother Ray, who was basically dying, and it was horrible, it was terrible, and it was just so sad. But the bottom line is that we had something to talk about, which was let the dead bury the dead. We're not into being too sad about people dying. We're into rejoicing of where they're going, and you're looking good. I took Brother Baldwin. He had been a Christian for many a year, but he never went to Psalm 17:15. He never went to where the Master talks about drinking the river of his delights. That God's going to stop you and prevent you. He's going to stop you and say, "Stop! I have something good for you. Come over here. I insist you come over here and enjoy this." This is what's going on with Christianity. And Brother Baldwin, he didn't know too much about that at all. The Baptist church he went to didn't share that with him, and they should have shared that with him. We're not saying the pastor's bad. It's a wonderful church he belonged to, and I enjoyed the church. But the bottom line is this. They should have been sharing these things, which are where you're going and what you're going to get and how wonderful it is. Because if you don't do that, you're not getting an A grade. And why don't you get an A in the class? Pay attention and do what you're supposed to do. Get an A. Don't tell me you got a B or a C. We're happy about that, but tell me you got an A. Okay? That's what Dr. Carey used to say in L.A. there. He had a church deep in the hood there, and he used to say that, why didn't you get an A? That's the case. Okay, don't make excuses for it. Work hard. Pay attention to get an A. That's my point. Now, I'm not saying the preacher didn't necessarily get an A, but I'm kind of saying, I don't want to say, but I have to give him a B because of that. You should be teaching heavy what we're going over here, that God's going to prevent you. He's going to stop you. Psalm 21. He's going to stop you and say, "Stop in your tracks. I have something good for you." Now, I'm putting it in American terminology. We're going to go to those scriptures later on, okay? When the Bible says, "Thou preventest me," that means he stopped you. Wonderful stuff. And we should teach this on a regular basis. And for those of you who follow this ministry, those of you who follow this service to the Master, the lovable Master Jesus Christ, those of you who follow this, and I have a few people, a few students now, and we're growing a little. Listen, let me share something with you. This is the focus here. Talking about being on earth and getting good things, we talk about that. But we have to talk about helping a Muslim woman be converted and live forever, and possibly getting sawn in half in an African jungle. That's also part of the gospel. We got to talk about all this stuff. It's all part of the game, as they used to say. It's not a game. I'm just using American terminology. It's all part of the road here. That's a better word. I'm not going to go into those preventing scriptures where the Lord's He's going to command you, essentially, order you to drink happy river stuff. You talk about beauty. We're going there, by the way. I'm not going to go there right now, but because I'm trying to give a review and I can't seem to get through the review. But it's all good. It's good stuff. The Lord is going to make you drink happy juice. He's going to make you drink a river of love. That's what the river is. There's a church around the corner here called the River. I might visit that river soon. The church, rather. That the river is a river of love. And it's very beautiful, evidently. So there's more beauty for you. So Jeremiah, you said beauty was the big thing here, and it is where I want to park. When we get to mercy, it's going to get emotional because it's a poignant conversation, and that's the way it's going to be. It's going to get a little emotional because we're going to get deeply into the deep care of God as this ministry winds down. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on enduring the cross that you have and the things pertaining to sound doctrine and any more negative TV preacher kind of stuff. That godliness is gain, the love of money is the root of all evil, and Paul having to deal with knucklehead Corinthians, if I can use that word, who brag about who baptized them, and the guy ran off with his brother's wife or something, and don't let people knock on your doors preaching another Jesus that John told the women, and going over all these doctrinal things. This is all wonderful stuff, but we're headed towards the river. So let's talk about it a lot. Okay, that's what I'm doing right now. We're getting into beauty and how beautiful everything is. Now, because I might have a Muslim woman who turns this on, and the Lord is calling her, she's going to have to face. There may be somebody in the drug cartel in Venezuela, and their families in the drug cartel, and they may have to turn them in, or there's a lot of it's a war. It's a battle, and Paul said, fight the good fight. I can't go into beauty every day, all the time. Because there are people who are listening to me who are in the middle of a very, very deep challenge, and it's a challenge of their faith. And I'm here to push them, exhort them into staying in the fight. I just put a lesson up online, which is not taking the easy way out. When Nero was burning Christians on the cross in whatever AD, the first century, whatever there, I forgot exactly what year that was, but Nero was burning people on a stake and having lions eat them. All they had to do was to say that Jesus Christ is not the king. That he is. A man who plays terrible music, reportedly, who likes to use big words he doesn't understand. And he's asking his people, why are they singing while they're on the stake? Because that's what we do. We sing of our future, and we sing of the power of the Lord, not now necessarily, but in resurrection and in the future. Who is the real king? You'll find out, Mr. Nero, when the King of Kings comes and takes over every kingdom. And the point is that they did not take the easy way out. All they had to do was say that Nero is king and that Jesus Christ is not king. And scratch the cross off of there, whatever, just abandon standing up for the master. And obviously a lot of them just said, burn me on the cross. I'm not renouncing and disavowing my king. He is my king, and he controls me, and he chose me, and 30 years of hanging around you is not worth it. Because you play terrible music, and your big words, philosophy, I don't like it. It's a bunch of highfalutin, piled high and deep PhD nonsense, and I don't really care to hear it, Mr. Nero. Do you really think that living around you in Rome is really all that worth 30 years, as opposed to living forever in heaven with the master by saying that you ain't the king You may be the king right now, but you're not the king of kings. And so, or you're God, you're deity? No way. I'm going to speak the truth, which is you're not deity, and I'm going to live. Okay? So looking good. Let's go to Revelation 21:2. Look, we talked about the city. It's a beautiful city. We're back to beauty again. God's going to bring down a beautiful city to earth. It's going to be New Jerusalem. It's going to be about the size of, I don't know, Texas or Australia or something. It's going to be a large city, and the walls are made up of 12 gems and stones, precious stones. And I'm going to go into that later on. The color, which goes back to the rainbow again. That's God's rainbow. It's His bow that's probably on His head. Color and light and beauty come from purity. We're going to get into that. Not today. We run out of time. But color and light and joy and energy and the ability to enjoy things and the ability to go left or to go right or to go up and go down in God's beauty, it all comes from Him. It comes from His gift. It's a gift from God. Because He enjoys freedom of, just like when the Master was walking on water and He came to the disciples, He enjoyed walking on the water. He must have liked it. He did it. He wants you to enjoy the same things. He's unselfish. That's quite plain. So the beautiful city, we already went over it. I'm not going to go over it again, but let's go to Jeremiah 13:20. The flock. God sees a group of people who are living and being happy as a beautiful thing to see. That's why we went over Isaiah 40:22, which talks about God sees humans as grasshoppers. God has a real-time view of humans. It's not a metaphorical view or a, how would you call it? It's not a hologram, imaginative perspective because I'm omniscient view. It's because I'm actually sitting right on top of you view. You got that? And He sees humans in that perspective, obviously, quite often. My point is that seeing you in such a fashion, He obviously likes to do that. And I mentioned to you, I used to like to go to Disneyland when it was crowded. I've been there quite a few times. Now, we're not here to be amused and to not think. Disneyland, these kind of places are places whereby you can go and you don't have to think. That's why it's called amuse. It means don't think. We're here to think, but you can enjoy certain things in life. A lot of people think because I teach the bottom line of take up your cross daily a lot, because the Master mentioned it 5 or 6 times. The point is that we're here to also rejoice together with people who just got a job. I'm not here to only rejoice in denial. That's absurd. It's just that we're putting on a mind of servitude. Because that's living bread. That's evidence when you put on a servant mind. You're open to being a servant, and then you serve. And serving can be awfully difficult. That's why we have to talk about the cross off and on here, and quite a bit. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to rejoice with you if you got a new car to go to work in. It's just not our priority. We'll say, that's great, let's praise God for the new car. But the priority is being with the Master and serving and pleasing the Master. Is that car going to please the Master? First of all, it'll probably get you to your job, so that's great. You don't need the bus. But the point is, are you going to go to that job and preach Jesus? That's what the car's for. The car's not for you necessarily to get to pay for your bread, daily bread, for your food. Obviously, that we rejoice in that, and we're not marginalizing that. It's just that the bottom line for the car is: are you going to go to the job and plant and water souls? That's the bottom line. You can use a car and go to work and come home and eat and live for yourself. That's called dead bread. It's Gentile bread. Just enjoy your life, and that's all there is to it. That's what my TV does all the time. That's why I don't have TV. There goes the number one song maybe of all time. I used to go to that church, by the way. Let me share that with you. I used to go to that church where that song was originated. That's in California, Costa Mesa. That song became one of the most popular songs throughout the entire world. The British Conservatory, the British Orchestra added it to their list of songs. The top 25 songs of all time in America. It's on that list. When you buy the top 25, when you go to the church, to the bookstore, Bible bookstore, and it came from the church that I used to go to, and I played the piano there for 5 years. But that's probably the number one song of all time. It probably replaced all the hymns that have ever been sung. And the name of the song is, I Love You, Lord. They added another song to it over there in England or somewhere that's two songs combined there, but I Love You, Lord is probably the number one song of all time. Because it's the bottom line of all our conversation. Everything always ends up with the love of Jesus, all the time. And we can't stop talking about it enough. All day long into the evening, we can't talk about it enough. Obviously, we talk about faith, hope, and love. I'm working on that lesson right now. It's right there. That's going to take 2 months. Who knows? I'm going to share with you Faith 2021, and we're going to get really into faith. I'm going to explain to you in detail what faith is, okay? It's a very deep subject. It's faith, hope, and love. I've been working on that lesson for, at least 10 years. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you. May it be a sweet sound in your ear. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. My Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand. Okay, so we talked about the flock. Let's go to Jeremiah 48:17. We're about ready to close my review, which is disciplined. A rod means discipline. It means that everything's going to stay in line. Nothing's getting out of order, period. So what the master's saying there in Jeremiah is, the rod is broken. He can't use Israel anymore, and Israel is no longer Israel. Israel is now Babylon, or Zerubbabel. What they've done is they built another confused place, and the discipline's gone, and the rod is broken, and it is no longer functioning as a spokesperson and a police officer of the world anymore. God can't use Israel anymore as a shining light and the salt of the world anymore. The police officer went bad. the justice, the truth, the honesty, it's broken. And it was once what? Beautiful. Israel was once a beautiful flock, and it was a beautiful place to go, and they were leaders. They were the Aries. They were the leaders who used their head, and they were the administrators of the commandments to the rest of the world. They were Aries on my chart here. They were the lion of Leo. They were Taurus. They were Gemini. They were the Sagittarius, whatever. They were humans, and we won't go into. I'm spreading myself out here, but it's sad to see what happens to people or groups that have authority, and all of a sudden they're broken. When they once were a beautiful vine and a tree that you looked upon and it looked nice. Now, obviously, it's ugly. Let's go to Acts chapter 3, verse 2. The temple gate. Let's talk about architecture. In Acts chapter 3, verse 2, we have the temple gate called Beautiful at Solomon's porch there. And what we have is we have a healing from Peter, and he doesn't have any money. Preachers back then didn't carry any money. They didn't have any bank accounts. If you can imagine that. But they didn't even have it. He said, I don't have any money, crippled man, but get up and walk. And that place there where Peter healed the gentleman of the malady there, it's a place called Beautiful. So it's called Beautiful because it must be beautiful. And we're talking about architecture now. When God makes things from an architectural perspective, it's beautiful. Let me tell you something. Jeremiah spends a little time, and maybe you do too, looking at paintings, and I look at paintings a lot, especially 19th century. I might expand to 20th century here and make a collection, but I have a collection. I might share my collection with you. I think it's all public property, copyright, but I'm going to make sure before I do that, all of the copyright laws, but I'm going to share with you my collection of 19th century landscaping, which I really like to look at. I like the different ways that people paint. And I also like looking at architecture. I enjoy what God does. And many of you are like me. You enjoy getting into what God has created here. And man is created in the image of God. He creates things similar to God. Obviously, here's my point. I enjoy architecture, and architecture is beautiful. I have footage. Some of it is in high definition of almost every place. I have. Let me share some with you. Let's talk about architecture for a minute. I have pictures of Rio de Janeiro that are wonderfully beautiful with Cristo, the statue of our lovable master there. They have a big giant statue of the master there. It may not be accurate, of course. I think he has long hair. Obviously, Jesus did not have long hair. But let's continue. I have pictures of that are beautiful, of Rio de Janeiro. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, in my opinion. I have pictures of the Riviera that are beautiful. I really like looking at them. I only have a few of those. I have a lot of pictures of Greece. Very beautiful place. Carlos Tate. Welcome, my Greek friends. I'm an international kind of guy. And I really enjoy those pictures, by the way. I'm 65 years old. I've collected a lot of pictures, but I really started collecting only a couple of years ago. And since I was semi-retired, I spend a little bit of time doing that. Now I don't have any more time too much for that anymore because you're my priority now. My students and my university are my priority big time. I want 300 videos up on the teachings of Jesus Christ and sound doctrine, and so that you can learn what I know. I don't want to know things by myself. I had one of my students tell me the other day that they're very much interested in what's coming up next, pertaining to faith or something else. And that's my goal. My goal is, feed the sheep here, make people happy with truth, make them intellectual. I'm intellectual because I just read. I'm no whiz kid. But let me close with that. I have, and we're going to stop right here on Acts 3:2. Beautiful. We'll go to 1 Chronicles 16:29, where we get into holiness, which I've mentioned before. But holiness is the key to everything that's beautiful. The only reason you get a garment that's beautiful is because of God's holiness. Otherwise, you wouldn't get nothing. The only reason you can be forgiven and receive the purity of God on top of you is because you decided to love God and give your heart to God. That's the only reason. That's the only reason you're wearing white. You're covered with His beauty, with His character, not yours. And we'll get to that later. I'm going to stop right here with beauty. Let's talk about architecture and beauty and how cities look. Because that's what we're talking about there, and that's what the Lord's talking about. And we have other scriptures besides Acts 3:2, which refer to architecture and Jerusalem. There's quite a few scriptures that I haven't gotten to. We'll get to them. I have some on my board over here. We won't go there right now, but I'll just refer to them. That I have. There's quite a few scriptures that talk about how beautiful Jerusalem looks, and I wanted to go there as we close. I have so many pictures, and I really enjoy looking at them. The pictures I have of Greece, and it's hard to pick a favorite. I spent a lot of my life, and I don't like getting too personal. I just want to share something that you also might want to do. I don't like to get into things that are esoteric for me. I know that a lot of you like art, and I was an art major for most of my time in college, and I got into philosophy and art education and general education, and a little bit into music and songwriting. But I'm a well-versed factotum. But what I wanted to share with you is that a lot of you are just like me. I'm not getting into intrapersonal stuff. All of you out there, a lot of you like art and color and stuff. I have a friend who is a legitimate whiz kid. He's a genius. It's my buddy. He lives in California. He is actually a genius. He has like 15 certificates on technical. There isn't anything he can't do technically with any machine, or he's just an amazing guy. He's a very nice guy too, and we won't go into him, but he likes art too, which is unusual. Usually people who are the brainy types, they don't get into art and color and design, but who knows? I'm just throwing out my own ideas, but we're closing with this. I am just so happy that I have those, and sometimes I'll sit here, and I'm going to get a new TV, hopefully. My big screen went out, and I'm going to get another big screen, probably on Black Friday. Some of you shop on Black Friday, but I'm going to get a big giant TV here, and I'm going to start looking at my pictures on probably a 60-inch, and I'm going to sit back and listen to some music and enjoy the pictures, because I get to travel. I mentioned to a friend of mine, they said they want to travel, whether it was COVID and how much it costs to travel and so forth. You almost have to hit the lottery, or you're some kind of oil baron in order to travel, and at least a lot of traveling. And so I mentioned that to her because I was just watching the Wheel of Fortune at the gym, and they have trips, the trips that they win, and that's actually the most expensive thing. If you win a trip to somewhere, you just got the big money, because trips are so expensive. To stay somewhere for 2 weeks and so forth. But I don't usually get off of the Bible, but I just want to share with you, we're talking about beauty and how beautiful. Some of my favorite pictures and footage videos are of Greece. Some of my favorite video is of the Riviera. Some of my favorite video is of some of my movies with Rio de Janeiro, Australian coastline. I'm from California, and I can tell you that California is probably the most amazing place in the world. I would say so. I have some beautiful footage of Hawaii. You talk about a beautiful place. I have some pictures of Tahiti. Listen, Jeremiah enjoys beauty in God's creation. And until the Lord comes back, I have so much on my computer I can enjoy. I have some high definition stuff with some classical music and some American ballads of love and devotion and so forth, which are amazing ballads. America has the most beautiful music ever created, without a doubt. I'll say that unequivocally. American music is indeed the most beautiful music and the most prolific in the history of creation. There's nothing that can compete with the music here. Nothing. We're talking nada. The love songs written by the guy down the street here, even the religious music, which was made by the Gaithers right down the street here, who wrote a lot of hymns. The Gaither family lives right down the street here. Cole Porter used to live right down the street here. American music is the most beautiful music ever made. There's nothing like it, because America is one of the most original places that God ever allowed to exist. I have so much music, I don't have enough time to listen to the beautiful music that's been made in America. There's not enough time in your life. Happy music, happy secular music. I don't listen to it too much, but I enjoy happy secular music. You could tell the people who wrote the music are Christians, many of them, because they'll toss in a hallelujah song. Because they're most about songs of Solomon, love songs, right? That's what they are. But back to the beauty part. I'm telling you, I don't spend that much time on it. I haven't watched some of those videos in a while, but I'll go back to some of them because I don't watch them that much, but I do enjoy them immensely. I mean, when I look at the Riviera and the way that the French lay out their cities and the architecture, the way the Greeks have everything, homes have to be blue and white with domes, and the water's clear and whatever. I have one that gives you close-ups of Athens and the Acropolis and the water, and just thank God for movie makers and people who share this with us. These pictures and a lot of them are free. A couple of those guys are free. They're educational, so they can use some of the copyrights and stuff, and it's very interesting. But I'm done for the day. I wanted to close out with architecture. We have more architecture we're going to talk about, and I'm very much into scriptures 99% of the time. But I decided to end this particular video sharing with you how many of us just enjoy beautiful things. Things that, especially architecture and so forth. I studied a little architecture in college. I almost majored in architecture. Beautiful homes and that's what life is. It's variety makes a horse race. It's just everything that's out there and going to the park. And I used to go to the racetrack. Many of you used to go to places like racetracks, stuff like that. I used to go to the racetrack and I used to sit at the park. It was called Santa Anita Park because it was so beautiful there. And you had a view of the San Gabriel Mountains. And the temperature is usually 76 degrees every day there. They don't have 3 months of snow like we have here. Every day is a day to go to the beach. I miss California so much. The California beaches, and I've seen pictures from around the world, but I'm here to tell you, America has the most beautiful places in the world, and that's just an open and shut case. And I think that most of them are in California at the beach. There's just too many beautiful beach, Riviera type cities. Oh, it's just, you can just sit there and look at it. You can go to a restaurant and look at Redondo Beach homes over the water and having some fish. And let me tell you something, that's your future. Your future is to look at all this stuff and enjoy it forever. And without any hospitals and funerals, and let's just praise Jesus for all that right now. I'm going to close on beauty. That's it for the day. I'm going to spend the rest of the day driving around like some of you do. And that's it. What are we listening for? The voice of the trump of the archangel of God. To be with the one who really loves you. Amen.